Here's to you, Mondego. Being your friend is always an adventure.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Make love to me.
Will you ever give up?
Hey!
I missed you so.
Missing is over now.
May this happy moment have a long and wonderful life for you both.
Edmond Dantes, you're under arrest by order of the magistrate of Marseille.
I demand an explanation.
Why are you doing this?
It's complicated.
Where are you taking me?
From now on, your home is a prison Chateau d'If.
No!
I have been a prisoner in Chateau d'If for 11 years.
You spoke of escape. What do you want to buy?
Revenge.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor that I present the Count of Monte Cristo.
You know him.
Have this plan. Take what you have won.
I can't. In return for your help, I offer something priceless.
You're no more a count than I am a commoner!
Why did you not come to me?
Why did you not wait?
Alexandre Dumas was a French writer born on July 24, 1802, and died on December 5, 1870. His works have been translated into many languages. He is one of the most widely read French authors. Many of his historical novels of high adventure were originally published as serials, including The Count of Monte Cristo. His novels have been adapted since the early 20th century for nearly 200 films. Dumas' last novel is The Knight of Saint Hermine, unfinished at his death, and it was completed by scholar Claude Coq and finished in year 2005. It was published in English in 2008 as The Last Cavalier. The success of Monte Cristo coincides with France's Second Empire. In the book, Dumas tells of the 1815 return of Napoleon I. The attitude of Dumas towards Bonapartism was conflicted. His father, Thomas Alexander Dumas, a Haitian of mixed descent, became a successful general during the French Revolution. New racial discrimination laws were applied in 1802. The general was consequently dismissed from the army and became profoundly bitter toward Napoleon. In 1840, the ashes of Napoleon I were brought to France and became an object of veneration in the Church of Les Invalides, renewing popular patriotic support for the Bonaparte family. In a small boat, he sailed around the island of Monte Cristo, accompanied by a young prince, a cousin to Louis Bonaparte, who was to become emperor of the French 10 years later. During this trip, he promised the prince that he would write a novel with the island's name in the title. At that time, the future emperor was imprisoned at the citadel of Ham, a name that is mentioned in the novel. Dumas visited him there, although he does not mention it in Tasseville.
Alexander Dumas was born on July 24, 1802, and he died December 5, 1870. Alexander Dumas, also known as Alexandre Pierre, was a French writer, His works have been translated into many languages, and he is one of the most widely read French authors. The Count of Monte Cristo is an adventure novel by French author Alexandre Dumas. It is completed in 1844. It is one of the author's most popular works along with The Three Musketeers. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas is the story of sailor Edmond Dantes, who was betrayed during his prime time of his life by the jealousy of his friends. Dantes is sent to prison where he spent countless years planning. The reason why Dumas wrote the novel it is because of the idea of revenge in the Count of Monte Cristo. It came from a story in a book compiled by Jacques Piochet, a French police archivist, published in 1838. After the death of the author, when the man died, he left his fortune to Pica, whom he had begun to treat as a son.
The genre of The Count of Monte Cristo is historical fiction and adventure fiction. The Count of Monte Cristo is an example of a romantic historical novel. In a romantic novel, the emphasis is on action, adventure, heroism, and love. Characters are usually either good or bad, with few shades in between. There is always a happy ending. Good triumphs over evil. It is a classic story of an innocent man wrongly but deliberately imprisoned and his brilliant strategy for revenge against those who betrayed him. Dashing young sailor Edmond Dantes is a guileless and honest young man whose peaceful life and plans to marry the beautiful Mercedes are abruptly shattered when his best friend Fernand, who wants Mercedes for himself, deceives him. The theme of The Count of Monte Cristo is one of vengeance and forgiveness, power and powerlessness. When Dantes is unfairly given a life prison sentence by his enemies, he spends every waking moment planning his revenge. As soon as Dantes miraculously escapes and returns to the world with riches, he sees it as a sign that God has opened for him the door of revenge. No longer does the reader recognize the pre-prison Dantes. 14 years behind bars in a dark cell has given him a criminal's mind, instead of the innocent, carefree, life-loving boy of 19. Dantes is now a hardened, cynical, and mistrustful man in his mid-30s. It seems a reverse baptism of sorts takes place instantly as Dantes hits the water after being thrown off the cliff by the prison guards. Immediately, Dantes begins lying to and using those around him. No longer is Dantes the clear-cut hero. To reinforce this change, Dumas refers to Dantes as the Count of Monte Cristo once he returned to society. Now the Count, not his enemies, play games with those he dislikes. Though she reward those who treated him and his father well, most of the story is devoted to the Monte Cristo's desire for vengeance. Throughout the story, Dantes changes disguise in order to deceive those around him and further his own agenda of punishment for his enemies. Yet when he sees Villefort's dead son, a truly innocent victim, the Count realizes that he has gone too far. For the first time, he comes to the realization that perhaps he doesn't have the gift of providence, the right to punish others. In effort to reconcile these feelings, Monte Cristo arranged the marriage between Maximilien and Valentine. At first, he hopes to punish himself by committing suicide, but when Haydée admits her love for him, the Count takes it as a sign from God that he is forgiven. Monte Cristo concludes the book with those two parting quotes: Count, tell the angel who will watch over your life to pray now and then for a man who, like Satan, believed himself for an instant to be equal to God, but who realized in all humility that supreme power and wisdom are in the hands of God alone. Only a man who has felt ultimate despair is capable of feeling ultimate bliss. These quotes underscore the theme of the entire novel. God is always more powerful than man. Only God has the right to punish and reward. Only a man who knows deep sadness can experience true happiness. The moral of the story is the lesson that a reader can learn from the story or characters and apply to life. All throughout Dumas, the Count of Monte Cristo, Dantes evolves. He goes from a young naive boy to an educated and vengeful nobleman to a more wise and compassionate man. One lesson might be that even though life throws various injustices as a person, he or she can overcome everything with education, a good plan, and persistence.
The Count of Monte Cristo is a novel by Alexandre Dumas about love, betrayal, jealousy, and revenge. After all, what's a love story without jealousy, betrayal, and revenge? Now, I will relate the Count of Monte Cristo in the current life of Filipinos. Everyone faces betrayal at some points in life. Perhaps is a romantic partner who cheats or a friend who takes advantage of you. No matter how much the person apologizes, you can't manage to tap into your inner reservoir of forgiveness. To ease your pain, you seek retribution, if not revenge. The violation of our trust is at the root of betrayal. It makes sense then to try to identify where that feeling of trust comes from.
The notable characters of the Count of Monte Cristo. First, Edmond Dantes. Before his imprisonment, he is kind, innocent, honest, and a loving man. Though naturally intelligent, he is a man of few opinions, living his life instinctively by a traditional code of ethics that impels him to honor his superior, care dutifully for his aging father, and treat his fellow man generously. He is filled with positive feeling, admiring his boss, Monsieur Morel, loving his father, adoring his fiancée, Mercedes, and even attempting to think kindly of men who clearly dislike him. His jealous rivals get him imprisoned on grounds that he is a threat to the crown. While in prison for 14 years, he received the education of an aristocrat from a fellow prisoner. His years in prison allows him to obsess about avenging himself upon those who wronged him. Second, Mercedes Herrera. She is Dante's fiancée at the beginning of the novel and is part of the reason for the betrayal. Her cousin Ferdinand is in love with her and wants to remove the competitions from Dantes. She marries Ferdinand and bears his son Albert. She remains miserable for the rest of her life, despising herself for her weakness and longing for Dantes, whom she has never stopped loving. Yet, for all her avowed weakness and fear, she proved herself that she is capable of great courage on 3 occasions. First, when she approaches Dantes to beg for her life of her son Albert. Second, when she reveals her husband's wickedness in order to save Dante's life. And third, when she abandons her wealth, unwilling to live off her fortune that has been tainted by misdeeds. Third, Ferdinand Montego. He is the cousin of Mercedes. Later, her husband and the father of Albert, the Mercer, jealousy over Mercedes, preference for Dantes prompt him to conspire with Danglars to incriminate Dantes. Known publicly as a military hero, and actually earned his fortune by betraying the Pasha of Janina, or Heidi's father. He helped in framing Dantes for treason and then marries Mercedes himself when Dantes is imprisoned. Through act of treachery, he became wealthy and powerful man, and later takes on by the name of the Count de Morcerf. He is the first victim of Dante's vengeance. He commits suicide after Monte Cristo reveals his military treason. Fourth, Monsieur Danglars or Baron Danglars, originally the purser on the same ship as Dantes. He is led by professional envy to convince Ferdinand to get rid of their rivals. He became a well-known, respected, and extremely wealthy banker and baron in Paris. His daughter is Eugene. His wife and he are alienated, especially that his wife is as money-hungry as he. Ruins part of his fortune. He is also a greedy and ruthless man and cares only for his personal fortune. He has no qualms about sacrificing others for the sake of his own welfare, and he goes through life shrewdly calculating ways to turn other people's misfortune to his own advantage. Monsieur de Villefort, he is the ambitious public prosecutor of Marseilles and the one who sent Dantes to prison to protect his own name and advance his career. His father was a known Bonapartist, thus his policy for Bonapartist conspirators was harsh. He sought to protect his own name. He succeeds in becoming the public prosecutors in Paris. He had an affair with Madame Danglars, which produced a baby whom he tried to get rid of by burying. In the end, his secret past is revealed and he is shamed before the whole community.
The Count of Monte Cristo is all about jealousy and betrayal, imprisonment and escape, revenge and repulsion. Where this novel will tell the story of Edmond Dantes, which stands to be the apple of the eye of this novel. We will follow him over the course of 23 years and 117 chapters. Edmond Dantes is set to marry his fiancée Mercedes, where Mercedes stands to be his leading lady in this novel. That there are two men also in love with Mercedes. In that case, they will betray Dantes. Readers can adapt the idea of this novel in the name of love. Dantes imprisoned by the betrayal and escape by himself. This shows how his love for Mercedes is. This will test his love for her and to correct the wrongdoing of people around them.
I have to say that this is a case where the film adaptation, greatly changed from the original book, outshines the book incredibly and addressed every single fault that the book had. The biggest and the most impressive thing to me was how the story was changed in such a way to dole out consequences to the two main characters for their actions, particularly in the case of Angier. In the book, he is really very victimized and doesn't really deserve horrible consequences in the same way Borden does. But the movie made him so much more of a multi-faceted character. Just the simple concept of the prestige materials still being living after the transportation ups the ante for Angier in a way that makes the character's choices for more devastating and really shows the level of obsession to which he is driven by trying to outplay Borden. Angier's obsession with discovering Borden's trick in the film is equal to Borden's obsession with hiding his trick. They both accumulate really horrible secrets in a way that really only Borden does in the book. Which brings me back to The Illusionist, which in the discussion I will spoil. If you recall from my comments earlier this year, one of the most perplexing things for me about the movie.